But this is the point about the past decade. The gaming industry doesn't need Hollywood. It's like they're in control. You know what I mean? They're basically saying, no, like, if we don't want to make the movie, it's not going to impact our bottom line. Like the video game industry, $150 billion a year, right? The Hollywood is $30 billion a year. So I think like that is a disconnect. We are the minority.
Wow.
This is what I'm saying, right?
So it's 5 times the size of Hollywood.
It's 5 times the size.
That's insane. Welcome to another episode of No Investment Advice. We've got NI boys here today. Got Jack Butcher, Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi. Trung, you look like you're about to spit a freestyle, bro. What's going on? What's going on?
I look like I'm about to drop the freshest verse in 2003, man. Coming out of that cipher. Have you guys ever seen Eminem roll into a BET cipher?
Oh my God, incredible.
Dude, Google Eminem BET cipher. The way that the other artists respect his game, it's unreal. They know he's the best. They know he's the best.
Do you know the only person who was better? Jin the MC. Do you remember Jin the MC?
Oh, the Asian cat, man.
The Asian.
Dude.
Or 106 in Park.
When he won like 8 weeks in a row, right? Freestyle battle. Freestyle Fridays.
Incredible. Incredible. Jack, what's going on, mate? You're on the road again.
In New York, yeah. Me and Bilal gonna link in person tomorrow. We could have shared a mic this morning, Bilal, but we
I know, we didn't sync it enough. Yeah, to be fair, I wouldn't have made it in. But all right, boys, we got a lot to talk about. We got the movie business getting broken down today because Nintendo had a crazy weekend for Super Mario Bros. Hit 400 million in
it's
opening
more of an
weekend.
Intellectual property chat, which is branding, which is right down Jack's alley.
Exactly. We're going to talk a little bit about best adaptation films or game adaptation films. Some old school Nintendo chat as well. Then we're going to be talking about Europe versus US. There's been some tweets from Paul Graham and others popping off discussing about tech and companies coming out of Europe. So yeah, let's kick it off with the Nintendo side, boys. Jack, Trung, what happened? Because you pinged us in the group chat, said let's do a Nintendo chat, and I had no idea what was going on. But they broke all the records, it looks like.
They had a ridiculous Easter. I don't know if it's a record for Easter, but 400 million, 380 million opening weekend. I mean, that number, you guys heard that. It's absurd. That's a lot of money for a film opening. And I think they have already made more money than any other movie this year. I think Ant-Man was number one, about 420 million. So by that time this episode comes out Wednesday, they probably have picked up globally that much. And I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember the 1993 live action Super Mario film? Bilal,
I can vaguely now see the characters, but I don't remember.
To be honest,
okay,
I was only a few years old.
Can you pull that up and just a cover of that film?
What was it called? Super
1993,
Mario?
yeah, Super Mario Bros. 1993. So what I'm going to tell you guys is this about that film. That film was so bad that it set back adaptions of video games to film decades. Like literally decades. They're like, you can't make money adapting video. Look at this. John Leguizamo as Luigi, Bob Hoskins as Mario, and Dennis Hopper as the equivalent of Bowser. This movie is so demented that Leguizamo in his biography said that he was basically drunk on set the entire time because he's like, we knew how bad this movie was. I want to give you guys a little bit of background on how bad that movie was. So the reason it happened was Nintendo. I mean, guys, did you have the NES, SNES? Did you guys have both those consoles?
Played them. I don't think I had them. I was Sega. I thought
Sega Mega Drive, and then PlayStation.
I don't think they were that big in the UK as much as.
That's a great point, actually.
I remember my friend
had. Yeah.
But obviously, you guys knew about Nintendo, right? Like it's like obviously a massive brand. Yeah. So 80s is when the Nintendo Entertainment System comes out, and then Super Nintendo comes out in the early 90s, and then N64, which Bilal just talked about, was in the late 90s.
That was Mario Kart, yeah?
Great
Mario Kart,
man.
GoldenEye. Oh my God, dude.
GoldenEye as well.
Man.
Well, we had that at uni.
Controller slots?
Someone bought one off eBay, and then we just used to play Mario Kart on like a N64
Mario Kart
old school.
is the greatest post-nightclub bar game ever. Or maybe Smash Brothers. Those are the only two options, right?
Yeah.
Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or GoldenEye, 3 options. But the whole point is Nintendo, which, so if nobody here has listened to the Acquired podcast, these guys are just the best on Company Breakdown. They have a double episode on Nintendo. But I just want to talk about the console itself because it blows up in the early 90s with the Super Nintendo, which is the most baller system ever. I actually had that. as an immigrant parent, my dad knew the only way to placate his children was every Christmas buy whatever the console was. So every Christmas we have a new console. But Nintendo hadn't done film yet, and they knew they had sick IP. They knew they spent decades building up their really good like guys like Yoshi, Mario, Luigi, Bowser, Donkey Kong. They hadn't done film, so they did an exploratory film, which we just saw, which became a massive joke. But the whole point is they put $50 million to make this movie, which at the time was enormous budget because they thought they had a built-in audience. But the producer of the film, I think his name's Richard Joffe, he was a really dramatic, serious director. I don't know if you guys remember the 1989 Batman with Michael Keaton. Do you guys remember that movie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you remember that was a badass movie, man. That Batman with Jack Nicholson as Joker. But the whole point, the reason I bring that up is that they basically want to make a Super Mario movie like that Batman movie, kind of gritty and like in the streets. But the problem was that nobody wanted that. Like, if you're
really
a fan,
yeah.
If you're a fan of that video game, you want the fan service, right? Which is exactly what the 2023 movie did. It's literally 90 minutes of like animated Super Mario Brothers, and it just feeds people. Like, I haven't seen it yet, but I've heard from people
like an
who have
extension
seen it.
of the game.
Exactly, right? And there's so much there's so many Easter eggs and small callbacks to like the video games and things like that. But what I'll say is this: I'll tie up the 1993 part, and then I'll throw you guys a couple quick questions about IP. So the big mistake they made on Nintendo was they gave the producer creative rights for the films. They don't even care. They're like, you can have full creative rights on making this movie, which is why it was such a disaster. But we just want the merchandising, which sounded good. And then the other part was actually trying to get Arnold and Tom Hanks into the film, and which would have been absolutely bonkers. Arnold as Bowser and Tom Hanks as Luigi, which I can kind of see.
That's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
Could you? That's so funny. Just that visual alone.
It's unreal, right? The one silver lining for the film, other than the fact it's a complete disaster, well, the silver lining is this: they did a really good visual effects for the time, and like they used something called Autodesk Flame, which is like early CGI, and it's now an industry standard. So like it's got a bit of a weird legacy. But the question I'll throw to you guys is this: did you even know that this Super Nintendo Mario Brothers was coming out movie? And what is your actual interest in watching?
I didn't know it was coming out.
Okay.
I knew it had come out about 24 hours ago when you told me it broke all these records.
Yeah.
Or like it was 400 mil. But yeah, what about you, Jack? Did you know it was
I have
coming
no
out?
idea. I'm also surprised by the numbers, because you would think that those characters and that story is really like overly resonating with a group of people in a really specific age group. Like, I'm curious, is it a kids film, or could you take kids to it? I don't know.
It's very kids. It's like it's even more kids than Shrek. Well, the group that made
Is it just straight animated? It's not
straight
like
animated.
humans.
It's like
mixed or
Despicable
whatever.
Me Minions. Same
Got it.
producers as so this is something we'll tap into right after this, but those guys are monsters, right? The Minions guys. Like, we talked about, remember we did the Minions episode probably a year ago when they released the latest Minions Went Crazy on TikTok.
With the dudes wearing the suits to the
exactly.
cinema. Yeah.
The gentle Minions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jesus.
So that's funny that you guys mentioned that, but I think something worth mentioning also is Bilal often brings up how we live in a bubble. I think this is one of the biggest bubbles that one of the biggest bubbles that I'm not familiar with is the gaming bubble. I don't game anymore. But we've all talked about how massive gaming is, right? Like think about our niche interests. Jack's got Web3, I got like tech Twitter, Bilal has Arsenal, even football, even like European football pales in comparison to video games, right? Like, the video game industry, $150 billion a year, right? The Hollywood is $30 billion a year. So I think like that is a disconnect. So
wow.
when Jack,
that is crazy. Yeah, you're right.
You know what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is when you're saying, I don't know who this would like appeal to. It's like, well, actually, we're the minority here. Like, we're not the
That's
gamers.
Great point,
right?
man. What was your guys' gaming habits? Like, last time I regularly played games, I was like playing FIFA with the boys I lived at uni with. And then when I moved out, I played a little bit, like when I first moved to the States, as like keeping up with people, go on. Like, we used to play Grand Theft Auto on the multiplayer mode. Like,
what, Xbox or PlayStation?
PlayStation.
Okay.
3? No, PlayStation 4.
Okay, PS4.
And then, you know, people started, you know, getting to an age where you're not doing that for 3 hours on a Saturday.
Again, that's the thing. We're still in the minority of that. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of people continue aging into it. Like, you bring up such a great point. I stopped playing same time. The Grand Theft Auto 3 was the last game I finished front to end. I played FIFA until probably 2008, 2009, and then haven't played a single game since. And the crazy part is the last 15 years have like the greatest games ever. The games just keep getting better. And,
I forgot the stat I'd read, Trung, or you might know off the top of your head, but the size of gaming versus like those other little industries you were talking about, it's just so much bigger.
Yeah, it's 150 plus, 150 billion plus for games, 30 billion for Hollywood, like 30 billion for music. We are the minority.
Wow.
This is what I'm saying, right?
So it's 5 times the size of Hollywood.
It's 5 times the size.
That's insane. And especially if you think like even like The Last of Us, that new show that was on HBO was based on that game, right? And there's obviously other big ones where it's not just like a kid's game. That's kind of when I'd learned a bit about it. It was at Charity Border. We were working on like gaming streamers and stuff, or with Twitch and all that stuff. And I like you, Jack, I'd stopped really playing proper games as a kid, and the only one that stuck was like FIFA and Pro Evolution and Championship Manager. Championship Manager,
which is funny because you're a football fan, right? Like, it extends in a different way. Like, it extends into like real life stuff versus, you know. It's fascinating to me. Like, this conversation is like bending my mind a little bit. Like the amount of time somebody spends in that virtual narrative is like, obviously people like looking at that like, oh, we could make a film to sit on top of this thing that captures all the interest that is already been. Does that include mobile games and stuff? That's like
it includes mobile. So mobile is I think, to your point, the biggest, because the largest, like App Store, the App Store revenue is insane, right? Whatever, it's like $100 billion a year, or how much they pay out.
Most of the games that are clocking most revenue are basically casino games, right?
They're basically
or like those little basic games. Like my mother-in-law, basically my Mrs. Mum, we were talking about gaming, and she was like, "Oh, who's playing games?" And then I observed her for a few days, and she's playing a game on her phone for hours every day.
Right?
But she doesn't even think of it as gaming. She's just, "Oh no, it's an app on my phone. Like, I'm playing with all these people." She's like in tournaments and stuff. It's quite amazing. But that's the thing. People don't even think about.
But this is why I don't feel bad about being addicted to Twitter, which is funny because we're going to talk about dopamine later. But everybody is. It's the phone, the form factor of the phone itself lends itself to addiction, right? And like the game that we have chosen is Twitter, like us, or like me and Jack probably more so than Bilal.
Yeah.
But like you have a different addiction, which is like probably going through like 30 tabs about Arsenal, right?
Yeah.
You're just going through the forum. No, the point I want to bring up about this, because remember how I started this and saying like the 1993 Super Mario Bros was so bad at like it ruined game adaptations. But this is the point about the past decade. The gaming industry doesn't need Hollywood. It's like they're in control. You know what I mean? They're basically saying is like, no, like if we don't want to make the movie, it's not going to impact our bottom line. I mean, sure, there are ancillary benefits to having a Hollywood movie, right? Hollywood still has the shine. You still there's something about Hollywood that's just different, right? It's like, this is why Amazon spends on streaming. This is why Apple spends on streaming. There's something about Hollywood that even these giant trillion-dollar tech companies that won't even move the revenue needle for them. Like Jeff Bezos still wants to show up at the Oscars. You know what I mean? There's something about Hollywood, but the numbers speak for themselves. Like even for Super Mario, it's like, how, are you going to acquire that many more new customers for the video game? Probably not. But I think that part's super interesting. And I think talking to you guys about realizing how much bigger games is, like we are really the minority if you think about it, about like fun games.
Well, that Tetris movie, we didn't get all the way through it, but we managed to watch like half of it, and so much of it is, I'm probably going to do a bad job summarizing it because I haven't seen the whole thing, but centers around IP basically and distribution rights and like how these games are distributed in different countries and cultures. And Nintendo is basically it focuses on obviously Tetris, but also it's like the inception of the handheld console, which is weirdly like it broke the model because it introduces like a new form factor to put
the Game Boy,
the
Game Boy,
games onto. Yeah. And there's this amazing scene where he goes in and they're like showing the hardware, and the guy that's obsessed with, the guy that I think brought Tetris to market or has a huge role in making Tetris one of the biggest games ever. Like this scene where he's looking at the Game Boy hardware device for the first time, is like, whoa, this is nuts. And Mario is the game that they were going to ship it with, and they talked about they basically talked about appeal. Like he's saying Mario has a niche appeal versus Tetris. Like anybody and everybody plays Tetris, right? Which is like weirdly analogous to mobile games now. They're like, they're just these like time consuming, like, brain engaging, almost like twitch muscle.
Oh, like, yeah, I see you're saying. Like Tetris is so much like how we play the majority of like mobile games, right? It's not like these long fantasy world games.
Right. That is a way more like broadly consumed and enjoyed gaming pattern, and like putting that on the Game Boy, it was like, probably the first example of what is now this like massive mobile game. Like anytime I'm in an airport or like on a plane or whatever, I'll look around what people are doing, and that most people are like playing like, they can't use the phone for the internet.
Candy Crush, bro.
It's Candy Crush, or it's like the number games, or these simple puzzle things, just like being engaged on some level. But
also Angry Birds as well, back in the day.
That was a class one, man. That was a class.
Yeah,
that was a crazy case study.
Oh,
they had all
dude.
the toys. Like that was a huge moment.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That was
they tried to pull Mario, right? Like they took the IP, made a film. Like what else can we do with this stuff?
Yeah, we need a Worm. Do you remember Worms? Where you'd be just
Nokia?
Did you guys ever play Worms? Where you'd be
I loved Worms,
fighting
man.
like other
Loved Worms.
Yeah, I think I played with my brother on one computer. Like you take turns and you'd like the worm would like shoot something and you try to kill the other worm. Trunk, you never played this. It looks he might have frozen. But
mate, I love
that was
Worms.
A classic
like
film.
The PC.
Yeah. Oh, classic game.
Do you remember Game, the shop in the UK?
Oh yeah. I'd be there every week. Yeah. In the shopping center.
Mate, Worms 2, unboxing that. Like I remember like tapping the table trying to get the bar to move faster, and the levels loading.
Yeah.
Back in the day, man. Back in the day.
Man, going to that's the thing. I wonder if, because nowadays the kid, or like not just kids, people who are playing games, you can just press a button and download the game straight away. But back in the day, kind of like going to Blockbuster, it was like going to the game store. You remember, you'd go and you'd be going on your best little hoodie tracksuit vibe, and then you go and then you go to the pre-owned section, see if you get like a nice £12 version, and you're like, oh no, actually let's get Ridge Racer 4. Trade in. You trade in the old stuff. And then I don't know if we should really talk about this, but it's fine. It's been a long time ago. Did you ever chip your PlayStation? Do you remember that phrase?
I remember, I never did it, but yeah, you remember like Xbox modding and all that stuff. It was
I didn't
like,
do it
there was
either,
a crazy culture around
some
that.
Some of my friends did. And for people, younger listeners, that was like you would basically go. There was a guy called Mustafa down Walthamstow Market where I'd go to his house, and you'd literally bring your PlayStation. Is this Turkish guy Mustafa? You'd bring it there, and he'd open up the PlayStation, and he'd do something, man. And then you could basically play copied games. And so we'd like go CDR to Pakistan.
Stuff.
Yeah, but even then, we'd go to Pakistan and buy like every game for £1, like instead of £40. And you were just a king. You'd come home and you'd be playing every single game. Everyone comes to your house like, did you just win the lottery? You've got like NBA Live, like the latest one, and it was amazing, man. That was so much fun.
Bling Bling King.
Bling King,
was nuts. Like when media was like actually restricted by hardware.
Having a physical copy.
Yeah.
Like even I've got a PS4, and I was clearing out some stuff recently, and I opened the PS4, and I realized I still was using like an old FIFA. Like FIFA was in there from like when I first moved there. It was like a FIFA.
Oh, because 2015. You just download everything beyond that, right?
Yeah, since then I've been downloading it. Trung, we were just saying, we're talking about the difference between buying CDs back in the day for the like PlayStation or whatever, the game, versus now you just download it. And that old school thing that you'd go down to the store to buy the game and do the pre-owned stuff. But yeah, Jack, I was saying like I just pulled out this game. It's like FIFA 2014 or something, like when I moved there, 2013, and I haven't bought one since. I've just been downloading them since. So it's just this weird
the
thing that
exact
you don't
same
even have
thing.
to do that.
I think it's the exact same thing. Whatever is probably like a little marker of when you bought the console, because after that it just all went. Remember memory cards on PlayStation 2?
Memory cards on PlayStation, yeah.
You got that little like this saved
Memory cards,
game on
bro.
the.
You slide on top. Oh my!
You
goodness.
have to save your game, like the progress of the game
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
That
Just
was
on
sick.
like before that, I remember keeping my Sega Mega Drive on like for 24 hours.
Yeah,
You couldn't
it's like
save the game.
Yeah. Sonic the hell.
Don't turn it
like-
off, please. Don't turn it off. Please.
And it's just spinning, right? It's spinning for literally
Oh,
24 hours.
Yeah. What was the bet on the Mega Drive? My favorite game of all time was Streets of Rage. I think me and Jack have talked about it
Sick
before.
game.
Do you remember
Sick
Streets
game.
of Rage?
Is that the
Tron?
fighting one?
Yeah, but it was
Oh,
like
dude,
you're
amazing.
going from the left to the right,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then you
I know exactly what that game
you
is.
pick up
It
that
like
big
shipped
piece of
with the
chicken.
Mega Drive, right?
I think so. Yeah, it was that music, the theme song to Streets of Rage. Like as soon as that comes on, I'm like, you could just
I'm gonna have to get
takes you
down
back.
that rabbit hole.
Rabbit
always
hole.
have these. There's a local market where we are, and like there's this one guy that comes out with all the old consoles. So you see like everything stacked up, and you look at it as like always think, oh, I'll get that and I'll play that and I'll set up a little. So I just don't do it. I'm not sure if it's actually compelling or it's just the nostalgia of like. When you
you
were
want to
like
play it
13
for one
or whatever.
game, and then you're like, actually, the PS5 is far superior to this, this Nintendo thing.
No, it's the same with music,
Twitter,
right? Whatever
your
slaps in high
notifications
school.
tab.
Like Bone Thugs.
Yeah.
Bone Thugs slaps in high school. That's
That's
what you
true.
listen to, right?
That's true. Yeah, it's kind of what you grew up with. So, Trung, as you dropped off, I guess one of the things I was going to ask, I was doing some research before this, but I only have, funnily enough, up to the year 2021.
Hit me.
So I have a limitation
GPT?
of it, but
What are you?
yeah. I asked ChatGPT the top game adaptation movies by box office. Funnily enough,
hold on. Before you do that, let me give you one last thought about the Nintendo Cinematic Universe.
Go on.
Let me ask you guys: do you guys play Smash Brothers?
I didn't even play Smash Brothers.
No,
I
you
don't
never
think.
played Smash Brothers?
What is
so.
it? Is it like a Mortal Kombat style thing?
No, it's like it's a screen, and then you can have up to like 8 little like classic Super Nintendo characters jumping around. It's one of the greatest games ever. But the reason I bring it up is
I'm looking at. I probably did, to be fair. I just don't remember because it was a long time ago.
I think a lot of our listeners did, and they should comment. I think the reason I bring it up, they have like Kirby, like Yoshi, all the characters into one universe. But this is waiting for an Avengers type of film, right?
Oh wow!
So
Look at
I'm
this
just
cover.
thinking,
This is like made for it.
So like, if they were to pull off, so I'll pin the Nintendo Super Mario Bros chat. But the things I want to say is like, Nintendo is so deliberate about IP management and about how they walk into the industry. Like Jack, your point about the Game Boy, right? You're talking about Tetris and the Game Boy. They were so ahead and thinking about how people interact with games, right? And they think on the way they manage their IP. Like they made such a big guff with the 1993 movie that for the recent one, they brought in the main game designer, Shigeru Miyamoto. So this guy is the legend, the god. He was very hands-on in the production of this 2023 movie. And here's the crazy part. The head of the studio of Illumination, which the production company, which did Despicable Me, Minions, they're like Pixar-esque right now. He's now on the board of Nintendo. He's the first foreigner ever on the board of Nintendo. So Nintendo basically spent 3 decades being like, okay, well, we really guffed that. Let's hold back. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And like, who can we plug into that understands branding licensing? Clearly, when we talk about Minions, like, remember when the Minions film came out, not just like the Gentle Minions that Bilal brought up, but the deals that they do. Well, Bilal, you've probably seen as a digital media guy, is like, they're amazing with partnerships, right? Minions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I haven't had too much exposure to it, but it seems like
they're
it from what
everywhere,
we've
right?
seen.
Like when they go, it's like, so like, it was really smart of Nintendo to finally be like, we're going to find the right partner. But here's the crazy thing. Let me put this nugget for you guys. We talked about how mobile really took over and is the source of a lot of gaming. I think the majority at this point. Nintendo never released a game. It took them ages to release an iPhone game. They did it with Super Mario Run. It never really became a huge thing. And Pokemon Go is like the largest.
I was just going to bring that up, man. Their IP is insane.
Yeah,
Pokemon,
it's just like, but the way they manage it, right? And it's just the way they manage it, though, is like, they're not rushed. Like, it took them 3 decades to make another film. It took them a decade since the iPhone came out, basically, to release a game, that really blew up on mobile. And then, with N64, with a Nintendo Wii, with the Switch. I mean, they've had some duds. The one between Wii and Switch was a pretty big dud, but. And the
what was
GameCube,
that even called? Do you remember?
I can't remember that one, but do you remember guys?
Oh, that's why it's a dud.
I didn't even know there was one. Yeah.
Oh, the GameCube.
The Wii was crazy, man.
The Wii was crazy.
That was pre-Wii, I think. The
GameCube was pre-Wii, right?
So
and then they bring out the Wii, which you can use a controller to like interact in real life. So
man, that was a massive moment in culture.
Massive
Remember
hit,
that?
Dude. That was
People
massive.
throwing that through the TV screen and stuff.
Playing tennis. But I mean, like these guys, like they really are thoughtful.
Man.
And so I wasn't shocked. So you seeing the 400 million is actually not shocking when you think about how these guys. I think the question was this. I'm like, why did it take them so long? But then if you actually look at their history, going back to what Jack said with like the Game Boys, like they're so thoughtful about how they approach these things. Except for that really massive 1993 dud. I think they learned from it. Were so burnt from it that they didn't want it to happen again. But I'll leave it with this. Let's hope that the Smash Brothers IP happens for Avengers style, because it looks like there's more juice to be squeezed.
Are you going to watch the film? Oh, you've seen it, Tron?
I haven't seen it. I'll probably watch it with my kids, just get them into the universe.
Take the baby and that's it. All right.
Boys, where do you think? I was just checking the top selling game consoles of all time. What do you reckon is top 3?
PS2?
Wii's number 1. Wii's got to be number 1. Is it the Wii?
Well, again, this is dependent on if this is accurate, because
is it chat?
I've checked both ChatGPT and Bard, because Bard I think isn't stopping until 2021, whereas because ChatGPT stops in 2021. But Jack was right. I think PlayStation 2, because if you just think the number of people that were playing PlayStation then was just so much more.
Oh, man.
160 mil, 155 mil.
What's Wii?
They're like, by the way, I think PlayStation is one of the best brands ever.
Oh,
like
PS, unreal.
Just in like the name, the content they put out about it. If you go on YouTube and look at like best PlayStation ads, there's like art been created.
The ads themselves. That's a great call.
They were incredible, man. Like just the whole concept of like alternate, like the consultant shill of metaverse now, where it's like, because the hardware's changed, you're now in like this new environment. It's like, no, these like that to me was like not a 0 to 1, but it was a huge leap, right? Like that era of consoles was like massive difference from the 8-bit 2D, era before it.
Oh yeah, it was a massive leap, 100%.
Also, I wonder, did you guys used to go to arcades as well when you were kids? Like play like Street Fighter in person and stuff like that.
What was it?
X-Men had an amazing arcade game.
X-Men was good as well. Yeah.
What was the one with the duck one, Bilal?
The shooter one where you actually have a gun, basically. Did you have that, Trunk?
You reload by shooting away from the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That was huge.
Reload.
Do you know what? In London, Trunk, there's a place called Trocadero in London, which is like, I think they shut it down now. But Jack, did you ever go to Trocadero? It was like this massive. So, no. It was like the equivalent of a block long. Was
it like a Chuck E. Cheese?
I've never been to Chuck E. Cheese, so I don't even know what it is. But it's basically
Time Crisis. Before I forget that, sorry.
Time Crisis. Yeah. But yeah, Trocadero was like an in-person arcade, but like massive. Like it was like 8 floors or something, or maybe it felt like 8 floors because I was like 7 years old. It was incredible. And then when you were like 15, 16, you were kind of almost too old to go, but you'd go just to hang out and like, there's the Dance Revolution guys.
DDR.
My friend Michael Ho would be going on there, Vietnamese cat. He'd be going from Hackney and he could break dance, so he was just showing off. No hands, exactly. All right, to answer your question, Trung, Nintendo Wii, according to Bard, which is up to 2023, I believe, is 4th. 101 million. I'm not using ChatGPT for that one because that stops at 2021. PS2 was number 1, 157 mil. Nintendo DS, 154. PS4.
DS, what was that? That was a handheld, right?
I think it was a handheld.
Yeah, it was a DX.
And then PlayStation 4, number 3, Wii, number 4, Xbox 360, and then it goes down. We'd have to read them all out.
Before you do the next list, which is the film, you knew the top film adaptation according to AI, which may be wrong. But let me ask you guys first, though. Jack and then Bilal. Actually, Bilal then Jack. What is your favorite film adaptation? Don't look at the list. Or video game. Anything comes up.
My favorite film
Maybe like Lara Croft. What? Maybe like Tomb Raider or some shit.
Okay, good call. Tomb Raider. Yeah.
So video game first is the criteria.
Yeah, video game to film.
Man, I've got the other way around. GoldenEye.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, GoldenEye. That is good. GoldenEye, incredible.
It's not even close. That is the greatest other way around. But what about the other way? You gotta give us the other way.
I'm trying to think, man. I'm trying to think.
I think this is the point. Nothing comes to mind.
Have you got one? Trung, have you got one?
Yeah, Mortal Kombat. Dude, Mortal Kombat
that's a good one too.
So
that was a film first.
No, a game to film.
Oh, okay. That was good. Yeah. That's probably up there for me too.
Resident Evil? I never watched the film, but how was that? Yeah, Resident Evil, the game was incredible though. That was
a great game.
Wow. We'll give Jack a pass. So
I didn't know any of it. It's just because I'd looked it up before. So I could tell you the number one was Warcraft. Apparently, 439 million. Again, this could be completely wrong. This is worldwide
just list them off.
box office
list
sales.
Them off. What else?
Number 2, Detective Pikachu, 2019, 433 mil. So I think this has already taken over, right? Because we already hit 400 mil. Number 3, Rampage, 2018.
Bro, what is going on?
Sonic the Hedgehog, 2020.
Yeah. That crushed
Sonic was incredible, by the way. That was classic. All right, number 5, Angry Birds, 2016.
There we go.
Tomb Raider, number 6. Mortal Kombat, number 7. Resident Evil, Prince of Persia. So there you go.
So we list them off. I've only seen Mortal Kombat from that list. Maybe this speaks to the quality of video game to movie. Somebody actually brought up a great point. I think actually, Jack, you even kind of touched on it when you were describing Bilal playing video games as an extension of soccer. I think a lot of gamers are like, we would just rather play a good game. It's like,
that's true.
Yeah, could you just put $200 million into making like a sicker game, like an extension rather than a movie?
That's true. It lasts so much longer than like an hour and a half film and it's more interactive. Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? Go ahead, Jack.
I was going to say, I work with the guys that did Blair Witch Project.
Oh my God.
Which I think is the biggest ROI on like
it's
film
that or
budget
Paranormal
ever.
Activity. Yeah, wait, you know those guys?
So they started an agency after that. It was called Campfire, and the agency I worked with acquired that agency. So I worked on a couple projects with them. They used to do the most incredible, like, a lot of the work they did was like in the production world. So they used to do these like boxes for Game of Thrones. Like before the season would come out, they would build these physical boxes to send to people that were like, there's a map in there, there's a vial of something, there's like, it's like trying to bring the experience of the story out into the real world. And they would send out these packs and stuff, but just amazing experiential marketers. And that's how they got their star, was Blair Witch, which I think they spent 40 grand on, and it did, I don't know, it was like 2000x at the box office or something, you know, it's just crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. Just on Jack's point, I think the only other film that's in the same ballpark is Paranormal Activity, because these low budget horrors, right? Yeah. Well, here's a little inside baseball for my failed screenwriting career. Horror travels internationally, right? That's not a shocker. It's like comedy is very localized. It's like
great
Dumb
point.
and Dumber's Dumb and Dumber could probably be pretty globalized because it's so much physical humor. But a movie like The Big Lebowski, like that's not gonna slap in Vietnam, right? There's like a lot of inside jokes there. So I can put a pin on this entire film video game chat. I'll put it with this so it's actually pretty big renaissance happening the last 2 years. Bilal mentioned Sonic the Hedgehog. The Last of Us, Bilal also mentioned earlier. But like The Last of Us was like created to be a film, right? Like that script was actually tried to be made into a film at first. And then they're like, oh, it didn't work out, so they turned it into a game. It's like, you see, it's like the two worlds are like getting close enough that, and like you take a story like Zelda or like these, as you guys ever played those role-playing games, like super long
Zelda's
ones?
Is that a Nintendo as well? Zelda.
That's Nintendo.
Mate, wow. They've got the sickest library.
IP is insane. So,
Zelda, man. And that was a lot of hours I put in Zelda.
And it's a great story, right? So this is my takeaway. Games are so much bigger. Like, just talking with you guys about it, realizing, like, I'm totally the minority on this. Is like, I don't even watch movies anymore. So, like, I'm in the minority of the minority. Like, I think our collective content diet is so different than, like, the median person. You know what I mean? It's like, they're playing games, they're watching movies, and...
The way you're talking about it is like these normal people who watch... movies and go to the cinema.
Think about it.
I went to the movies this weekend. I watched Air.
8 hours of podcasts yesterday. It's like the only guy in the worst who listened to 8 hours of podcast. No, I mean, like,
reading Paul Graham's tweets.
Yeah.
This convo has just made me realize how different like our content diet is, and like honestly the median individual, right? All right, that's good.
Boys, by the way, sorry, I'm on a AI research role here because you guys just brought up the best ROI films, and I'm just curious. You said the two, Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity. All of these in the top 10, most of them are like horrors, right? It's like Halloween.
Yeah.
I think was Halloween a horror film?
Oh yeah, buddy.
The Exorcist, Silence of the Lambs, The Sixth Sense.
Oh wow.
The only ones that
sound
aren't.
like big budget films too.
Yeah, well,
like,
some of them were, but
they just did amazing.
Yeah, like for example, The Exorcist cost 12 mil, but brought in 441 mil.
And culturally legendary.
Oh
right?
yeah,
Iconic.
incredible. I can't believe that's 1973 because I remember growing up where people are like, oh, did you see The Exorcist? And I just assumed it was from the 80s or something.
Let me give a little fun fact about The Sixth Sense. Bruce Willis, who unfortunately is having some type of dementia now, you guys probably saw it, right? Like he's completely aged, like Alzheimer's dementia-esque type of
I didn't know that.
symptoms, which is very unfortunate. I don't know if you noticed, the last 4 or 5 years, he's been in a lot of like straight to DVD movies or straight to streaming that are like, they're awful. And he's in for like one scene just to make the check. And apparently his handlers are like putting in there to like pay bills, and it's really fucked up. But I'm bringing up The Sixth Sense because The Sixth Sense might be the most money an actor ever made on a single film. And Bruce Willis says, I want points. He took, I think, a $10 million pay cut with M. Night Shyamalan. It's like, I just want back end. Back end, DVD, home video. And you just mentioned it, the money that film made, I think he made over $150 million from that.
Yeah, I can see percentage-wise is basically the top one according to...
It's insane, dude.
It says it cost 40 mil to make, and the worldwide box office sales 672 million.
Yeah, I think
that's insane.
I think he got 15 to 20% of points. Insane.
Wow. Okay, so he's bowling from that one.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, there's some of the interesting thing is, Trung, you might know better because you've actually written script and you were working on that TV show stuff. But like the fact that Paranormal Activity cost 15 grand.
Oh, so this is
Blair Witch was 60K.
It's fascinating about Paranormal
That's
Activity.
crazy. Like, how is it so low?
Well, have you guys seen Paranormal?
No, I haven't even watched it. So.
Is that the one in the one house with the
it's a baby cam.
or something?
It's basically like a baby cam.
It's like
horrible.
a GoPro.
And it just looks at one room. I'm never going to watch. I don't watch that shit, man. That's just terrifying.
Yeah, it's true.
I'll tell you the story about Paranormal because you hit it. 15 grand to do the first version. Production company bought it. Blumhouse did. So Blumhouse is known for taking these huge bets. They made Get Out, the horror movie. So they're
incredible. Yeah, that's great.
They're known to do these like lower budget horrors and like kill it with distribution marketing. But Paranormal is interesting because production company buys it, reshoots some scenes, and then Steven Spielberg comes in and says, this movie's amazing. I want you to reshoot the ending. So Spielberg comes in, adds his little secret sauce, goes bonkers. So there you guys go. There's two fun facts from the day.
Yo, you guys, I know this sounds so NIA tech, but I'm just curious. Since we talked about AI video recently and all these like tools and stuff, obviously there's going to be people making like legit films the way we've made them for 50, 100 years. But do you feel like there's going to be at some point someone who made a film for a couple $100 grand, but that was spent on this high leverage, like AI generated videos, like a script was written?
Asked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben Tossell asked a great question. He looked at this list of the most profitable films ever, and he goes, wait a second, what's stopping an AI from doing like Paranormal Activity, like you're saying, right? But I think this is what's going to happen. You're going to get a movie made for 10 grand. Typically a movie, the marketing budget is equal to the production budget. So if you spend $100 million on calling it a Marvel film, they usually put $100 million into marketing, which is insane if you think about it. But that's just how it works. I think what's happening is the skew is going to be massive. He'll spend $5,000 on an AI flick, and then
spend
$10
crazy
million on marketing
promotion
and distribution and getting it and making people aware of it. That's basically what happened with Paranormal. I think Paranormal's marketing budget was 18 mil versus 200 grand. I think the Jax guys, Blair Witch, that film was whatever 50, 60K budget. But I think
60 production,
the marketing on that was in the tens, like 5 to 10 million.
Oh, got it. Okay, it makes sense because again, I hate to put it in these terms, but it's like you're just going to be able to create a lot more MVPs, essentially, right? Like this. I've got an idea. yeah, I've got like Trunk's got an idea for a movie, and he's gonna say, oh, I'm gonna write the first draft of this script. You'll probably use barely.ai to speed up your process.
Yeah, I was about to say Bard, but you're right. Barely.ai, NIA 150 discount code.
150, get 50% off. But so I would say like off. Being able to create that is like, and if you put it out, you put it on YouTube, you promote it on your thing, you create a little trailer. People like it, they don't like it. The algorithm picks up or it doesn't. If it doesn't, all right, it didn't work. But it's just the fact that you're able to create these like concepts. And maybe it wouldn't be a full 1.5 hour movie. Maybe you create a short first, and it's like trailer. A concept for it.
Yeah.
And maybe a smart version would be a mixture. Like I think the best ones would be maybe you're getting paid actors to actually do certain parts, but you're also using this stuff to, increase your like velocity.
Jack's call's great. Imagine you just start popping out trailers and like.
Oh yeah,
it's like a typical trailer.
It's like Kickstarter type thing.
Yeah. That's a good point. You don't even have the
idea,
magic mop. You just made a trailer for it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, they're interested in the magic mop.
Don't know why that came to my head, but yeah.
I'll tell you the funny thing about trailers is, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but trailers now so typically a trailer should give away about 10 to 15% of the movie's plot. But like now, because people have such short attention spans, you'll watch a trailer and they'll give away basically like the whole ending plot. Or like the whole plot. So you're like, what is going on here?
Or the worst is when this is a comedy, but all the best parts were in the 30-second trailer. Yeah.
So
that's fun.
They gotta get there.
No, go ahead, Jack.
So I was to say they gotta compete. Like you gotta use all your best stuff up front to win the attention war, right?
Sucks,
like,
man. It's tough, dude.
It's like the Yelp 5-star restaurant thing, right? It's like if you get into that feedback loop and you're a restaurant that's like, underneath the top competitor in whatever that thing is, you just disappear. Like the way the internet aggregates attention. Yeah. Crazy.
All right, boys.
That was great. Anything else on that before we talk about Europe versus US?
For technology specifically.
That was a good chat. I didn't know we were going to go in those directions, but I like it. Let me pull up Paul Graham's tweet. I think this Paul Graham's one?
Yeah.
Let's have a quick look here.
Paul Graham of Y Combinator, the startup incubator, a Silicon Valley icon.
Yeah, there we go. He had a few banger tweets recently. Yeah, he had a back and forth for Elon too. All right, here we go. Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
And Jack's went for a little walk, but we got Paul Graham says the 4 biggest French companies are all fashion brands. Number 1, LVMH, 452 billion. I'm assuming this is a market cap, yeah?
Yeah.
Number 2, L'Oreal. Number 3, Hermes. Number 4, Dior. Number 5, Total Energies. Number 6, Sanofi. I don't even know how to say that. Yeah. Schneider Electric is next. Air Liquide.
Yep.
My GCSE French coming in hot there. And then the next one is Luxottica, right? Is that
the eyewear?
The eyewear brand, right? Yeah. So
and then BNP Paribas. Every glasses company, right? They're like holding companies Ray-Ban, for everything. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the biggest 4 French companies are all fashion brands. So yeah, I mean.
So when you see that, well, let's do some interpretation. When you see that tweet, because he's just posting it, and obviously he's trying to send a message. So I'll give context. He sent that tweet a day after. Or the same day that Germany and France both announced that they might block ChatGPT, or they did. A week earlier, Italy had blocked ChatGPT, and they did it around data privacy. And the context we'll give for listeners and viewers is this. Europe's place in the global tech game is this. China has its own internet with internet giants, Alibaba, Tencent, ByteDance, right? We've discussed those on the show. ByteDance owns TikTok. It needs to get banned. The United States has obviously thing like Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, and companies of that nature, the giants, the world biggest companies in the world. Europe is in this middle ground. This is the context. And for the last 3 decades, as all these internet giants have grown up, Asia has built internet giants, America has built internet giants. The largest tech company in Europe is SAP, which is basically European Oracle. Its market cap is about $200 billion, which is embarrassing. Well, the other tech player of that size is ASML, which creates the machines, which creates semiconductors. So anybody that knows Taiwan Semiconductor Company, which makes the chips across the board, your iPhone, for the cars, for any electronics, they have to buy this machine from the Netherlands. So this company is worth about $300 billion. So just to put this in context, Bilal did a list of the top 10 French companies.
That was French, yeah.
Yeah, I'm listing off the top 10 European ones. LVMH, ASML, L'Oreal, Hermes, Seller, SAP, Total Energies, Sanofi, AB InBev, Dutch Telecom. Apple is bigger than all these companies combined. So that's the context, right?
Yeah.
That is the context for, I think, Paul Graham's tweet. I think he's basically saying, okay, you guys are banning AI. Well, yeah, there's an argument to ban AI. I mean, I think there's some credence to like.
Well, and then, sorry, this was Toby, the founder of Shopify, posted this, right?
What did he say?
So Zero Hedge had written, Germany considers banning ChatGPT over data privacy issues. And then he basically quote tweeted that and said, Germany tragically missed all AI and machine learning. This kind of nonsense definitely will not help catch up. And I can't remember if it was, this is one of my, so this is one of my favorite tweets. Allegedly 36% of German babies' first word is Datenschutz, which I think is data privacy or something like that. I think it's data privacy or something like that.
All right, so,
but basically the joke is that the only thing that's been added by Germany to the tech ecosystem, which I don't fully agree with,
regulation.
or Europe, are those annoying, accept cookie banners or the most prominent ones. I will say there's also obviously good, Spotify came from Europe. There's plenty of companies that have come from there, but not at the same scale as Apple, Google, etc.
Can you describe GDPR? Because you're in the digital ad game. What is the relevancy of it? Give it TLDR.
I just got a little chills there. But yeah, GDPR is just, again, all this privacy stuff. So
General data privacy regulation, right? So what does it mean?
I can't remember all the details of it now. I blocked it out of my memory, to be honest. But basically, they created these rules, and that's why you saw all of these like banners across the internet that accept cookies. It was like opting in to cookies versus just automatically dropping cookies or something along those lines. And then we had the equivalent in the US. We had what was it called? Again, I've forgotten the name of this, but there was another version of this that came later. And all the Apple kind of privacy stuff that we've talked about on the show as well. And so basically we've gone from a world where as digital marketers or people that create businesses on the internet, before you could have a Facebook pixel, you could have a Google pixel and collect all this data in the background. And that helped personalize ads and like make them more relevant for people. And that's a positive take. The negative take is it was tracking people. It was like, not good for their privacy, etc. So that's kind of the conflict that's been going on for some time. And now we've got to a point where it's becoming like, if you're a small business, it's become harder to operate on the internet, in my opinion, because of these laws. And you can argue if that's right or wrong, but you're if you're like a little small e-commerce business selling hoodies or selling like t-shirts, like previously you could create a great product, create a Shopify website for $20 a month or whatever it is, and basically start driving traffic from Facebook and other places at $10 a day, $100 a day, and probably get it to be profitable. And now that is much harder to do. That's my opinion.
Because you can't target the exact audience,
right?
Yeah,
it just becomes harder to personalize those ads in the same way you could previously, and also measure how effective they were, understand analytics, that sort of stuff.
Jack, has it affected your ability to run VV?
We haven't done any paid ads. We tried little experiments here and there.
You don't need it.
So probably not.
You got distribution.
I mean, it's been affected by like organic algorithmic change stuff. But we never did anything like hyper, like this person gets this message and that message, then you put them down this. We have like a couple email sequences that are like, they're just 10 of the same emails, but the degree of sophistication you can put into like the logic on the back end of all that stuff, and Bilal knows this way better than I do, is like, it's pretty powerful. They're pretty powerful tools. And Apple, this is an Apple thing as well as a Facebook thing too, right? It was like basically the iOS update.
Yeah, iOS was blocking you from being able to do a lot of this tracking. And so GDPR came before that. And that was the kind of law that allowed people to have more control over their data,
what's
whatever.
funny is that every single person listening to this has clicked, yeah, I'll accept the cookies. Like, you're not dealing. I'm not dealing. I want to read this content. Give me the cookies.
Exactly.
Me. Let me read this content.
Exactly. Yeah. So
anyway, it's interesting, like a formality that is like kind of makes no massive difference, but you know.
Well, this is the argument with Europe, right? This is, I think, what Paul Graham bringing up is like their only lever is as a regulator. They're like, we're going to regulate because we have, so Europe, I think 27 countries or 30 countries has the same economy size as the United States of America, right? So that collective, the continent is comparable to America in terms of economic activity. So they're like, okay, let's just wield this hammer where we're like, okay, we're going to shut you out of our market if you don't follow our rules. And like, listen, to Bilal's point, there's credence to both sides of the argument. It's like, yeah, you want to protect users. You don't want anti-competitive things because Google and the EU have been at odds quite a bit over anti-competition stuff. Like EU, I think Google had to change some Android stuff and how they did restaurant reviews or like kind of their store reviews around EU laws. So that's EU's kind of cudgel. And then whether or not regular AI is one whole question, but this is just another thread of like Europe. Like, what's your contribution to tech, right? And so I did pull something up. I'd love to query you guys on this because you grew up there, obviously. But now you love
Trung, just before you bring that, can I say one extra thing? Another lens of this is employee. So I can't remember if it was Tene or someone else on Twitter had shared this, and I think I shared it in DMs with you guys. But it was essentially a screenshot of, Wall Street Journal or whatever, talking about Google or Facebook trying to, let go of employees in Europe and how much harder it was versus US. And for example, in front, like I know from speaking to people right now, the layoffs that happened at Google, 3 to 6 months ago, whatever it was, probably 3 months ago, like that same layoff is just not happening in Europe because there's more regulations. You can't just let people go that quickly.
Labor laws are way more beneficial to the employees.
Exactly. And so there was a big debate on Twitter about that because like a lot of people in American lens who were entrepreneurial said, this is why we can't build stuff in Europe. Like, how can you expect us to create stuff where we can't fire someone for over a year, which is basically the case in France, I believe. It's like really hard to do it there. And then in the comments, rightly so, I guess you could argue both ways, but someone else said, well, don't you think it's good that they're looking out for employees, not just the business owners, which is a fair point of view as well. So I think that's another lens. It's about, building businesses, but it's also about like citizens and livelihood of people as well.
I think you nailed that. I think you brought up exactly what I was going to talk about. It's like, what are the conditions of why is it that America has these FANG companies? Why were they able to dominate the internet? How come Europe never made a Google? Well, Europe tried. In the mid-2000s, the French and German governments tried to launch something called Quero. They committed 400 million euros to launch a European search engine. They said they wanted to build the Airbus of search engines. So for people who don't know, Airbus was built as a French-German collaboration to compete with Boeing, and now from America. So Boeing and Airbus are the two main aircraft manufacturers in the world. So Europe's like, well, Google's cool. What if we made our own Google? Except Sergey and Larry are making Google, and then now you got a couple of government bureaucrats with $400 million. That's not going to get the job done, right? But I think, Bilal, you bring a good point is, and there are arguments on both sides. I think the starts to get so heated, right? It's like, oh, you know what? Healthcare is cool. Like that's kind of the reaction, right? That's
basically, then it becomes very much just like
it's emotional.
My territory over yours, and like my flag over yours. Versus...
your government doesn't take care of your people. Like you guys don't have universal healthcare like that. So like these are all relevant. So I'll list off a couple of things from this article. This is from The Guardian talking about why Europe hasn't been able to make like kind of a big tech giant. So they say, well, part of it is it luck. Is it luck in the sense of Silicon Valley started ahead of conglomeration of research institutions? So you have like Caltech, you have like Berkeley, and then you have like Stanford with industry, right? And then Silicon Valley is obviously the silicon in Silicon Valley was because of Intel and Fairchild Semiconductors built around semiconductor chips. So you kind of had this path dependence where this entire industry just started because they caught the wave of semiconductors, right? Which led to computing. So there's that part. And then you had Apple, Microsoft. Microsoft obviously is up in Seattle, but Apple came out of the region in the 70s. But the whole point is like, okay, is there just luck involved here where they had this region that was very good for commerce and there's research institutions? So it's part of it. But I think a lot of it's just path dependence, because what ended up happening is, you guys remember in the 2000s, Skype was a massive, was huge, right? And Skype's from Estonia. Have you been to Estonia, Jack?
No.
Oh, dude, it's baller, dude. So for all our Estonia listeners, I'm a big fan of Estonia. I went to Tallinn for 3 nights. That's when I met Flower Shirt Guy. If you guys remember our callback to with you.
Of course.
But Skype, kind of the argument was that like Europe had never created this like kind of venture capital industry in the early 2000s and late 90s that had started in the United States in the 60s and 70s. Like Arthur Rock invested into Intel and Apple to start this as a VC industry. So basically what happened was like Skype's growing. It could have been a major player, but it gets bought out by Microsoft. It didn't have the same pension system in Estonia or European massive funds to invest and keep it local and grow it. So there's that argument. And then the last thing I'll add is, that was a big one. Oh, Zendesk is also European and never really blew up. Bookings was a Dutch company. And
I have a theory.
Yep, hit it.
I think the thing that maybe hinders the like early network effects is the like single country distribution to begin with. Because no country gets anywhere near the scale of the states, right? Like if you're launching a consumer product
bookings,
in the
right?
state,
Well, like just say Bookings is from Netherlands.
What's
that's a good point,
like, I don't know, what's the population of the Netherlands? Sub 100 million.
Yeah.
It's probably like 20 or something.
50 million.
20, 30.
Yeah, no idea. But 330 in the States, it's like even a like bad idea can probably get more traction numbers wise than a good idea in a country that has 1/10 of the population. And then it has to, probably for regulation's sake, has to like find traction and like, you know, do well there for it to expand out into other countries. Whereas here, like you're already playing with a 10 times the size market. It's interesting.
And I think, Jack, that's interesting because I guess that's partly the idea of the EU originally, was to create less barriers between the different countries, borderless. But then you've got like how many different languages
there's language barriers, right? You're absolutely right.
There's cultural and language barriers. It's like, you know, so that's a big difference. But I mean, actually, Trung, the Booking.com example is a good one because they're actually a legit, you know, publicly traded company, I believe.
You know about Priceline, though, a U.S. company.
Priceline, you're right. And I've said this on the pod before, but they were the biggest client of Google for a long time, and they might still be.
Huge, right? Like $10 billion a year.
They spend crazy money because they basically bid on anything travel related. They're bidding on now, hotel related. So the thing with like, it's not like they can't come out of Europe. It's just that we've seen so many less examples. And I think what you said earlier, I think the word luck is the word that was used in the Guardian article, or like they were asking, is it luck? There's also this old theory I remember from school called cluster theory. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that.
You cluster around these areas like
it's like Boston is one example where you've got like
MIT,
the academics.
Harvard,
exactly. And then Silicon Valley was a perfect example of that. You've got the academic side, and then because of that, companies start there, venture capitalists come there, and it becomes a small
London,
ecosystem.
Bro, Oxford, Cambridge, you see how like you guys have like the deep mind is like the smartest thing in that region, right?
But they make regulators for the most part, don't they? Like they produce like government employees,
like lawyers, like the
like Eton and like I don't know. Bilal probably correct me on this.
No, that's right.
The Cambridge, Oxford graduate to me doesn't have the same reputation as like the MIT or the Stanford graduate,
Oxbridge, right? You go into bureaucracy.
You go into some like high society infrastructure of government or like big bank, or it's not like you're going to go to your garage and start a semiconductor manufacturing thing.
But I think, Jack, that's a really good point. But I think that's also like a delay almost, like, because for me it's like the Silicon Valley and the US really Silicon Valley has been the first to go for technology, right, for the last like 40, 50 years. And so if you're comparing Oxford, Cambridge to Harvard, that would probably be similar, right? Because like in the UK, the primary industry was like finance. So if you go to a good school like Oxford, Cambridge, LSE, UCL, Imperial, etc., most of the time you are going there because they're not churning out entrepreneurs, right? Most higher education institutions aren't made for that, even in the US. Whereas like the culture in the US, especially in a Stanford or MIT, was, I don't even know Stanford if that was always like that or if it was more in recent times or last few decades. MIT obviously is, about technology.
What's
so
it
it's
called?
been
Route
like that.
28 was the name of the research highway. It was one of the, I'm butchering, but listeners correct me.
But yeah,
it's about inventing stuff, right? Like that's the core difference.
But the thing is, Jack, I guess we think of inventing stuff as like technology nowadays primarily, but Oxford, I'm not just bigging it up because I'm English too, but a lot of like academic inventions came out of that in air quotes, right? From
discoveries,
Oxford, Cambridge, discoveries, mathematics, medicine, exactly. So different science and technology.
Disclaimer,
from back
Bilal
in the day.
is a UK citizen.
yeah.
I'm not trying to dig on it either. I'm just like the difference is fascinating. Of like,
it definitely fell off though. Let's be honest. It's like it's fallen off compared to the rest of the world. Like, I mean, UK specifically. Like, I'm still obviously a big fan, and I want them to do well. But like, with what's happened in the last like 10 years, I'm not looking at UK and being like, oh, that's what I'm going to go to find that new discovery.
Well, dude,
like,
we
it doesn't
talked
feel
about
like
it
that
with
anymore.
Burton when he was on. Why did you guys leave? Like, why aren't you in the UK?
Point.
Right? Like, why aren't you worked in Google London, but why aren't you still there? Like,
exactly. Well, the reason is because there's more opportunity from, like, in the ideas that change our lives episode, we talked a little bit about this. Like when I was younger in my career and in my life, early 20s, I was like, I can now point myself in a direction which I'm going to optimize for career, business growth. Like that's what I care about. And in my 40s, I might say the opposite and say, oh, I did what I need to do in the US, and maybe I want to go and chill in Europe and like be a bit more, have a better work-life balance and like drink olive oil in the field sort of vibe. So it's just like a different kind of mindset.
What are you doing today? Just drinking olive oil in the field, man.
Just sipping on olive oil, yeah. But no, so I mean, it is that, right? Like the reason, I'm sure, Jack, you're the same. Like the reason we moved there was because we felt there's more opportunity work and business-wise, right? Like maybe it's fun as well. Maybe we weren't thinking that deeply about it, and it's different for us in the same way.
Yeah, just a change.
A change. And there are Americans that move abroad for that reason too, right? Like they go to Europe because they're like having a great time, like Emily in Paris style.
Or guest last week's, like I still lived in Italy. And look how much like more insightful and like thoughtful he is about life than I am, right?
That's true. So yeah, that's a good point. Like we definitely have this bias towards like coming to America and like all the good things. There are plenty of things here which I don't like either, but I accept the flaws for the upside, and that's why I still remain here. And then the other truthful thing is, it's like your life kind of catches up with you, right? Like if you're single and you live on your own, you can do what you want and you just want to move back, you can do that. Whereas like if you're married to an American like Jack is, or basically me, that's a different story, right? Then your practicality takes over and you're like, well, now we live in between both our families and like there's upside here for these reasons. So that's kind of why I remain here. But it doesn't mean like I think you could go to Europe now or anywhere else in the world and live a great life and like actually run a small to medium-sized business pretty well, because I think remote work allows you to do that. But if I was trying to build a VC-backed startup that's gonna like become huge, or at least create a network that would allow me to do that in the future, like you want to be here, right? Like there's no denying that. Now, I guess the question is, would you now say maybe Asia's gonna become that? Like where?
Well, you talking about super clusters, right? Well, that's why China. To Jack's point, China's a massive internal market. They block their internet. They have 1 billion plus people. There's a reason why Tencent, Alibaba, and ByteDance are massive. They have a captive market.
But then at the same time, there's that individual upside that you get here, you don't necessarily get in the same way in China, it seems like, from the outside without...
That's it.
Go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, boys. We got to do a world tour.
Yeah, exactly. Jack, anything else on the Europe side that you want to add with your experience moving here?
No, just the fashion thing is like, I guess exporters of culture is kind of a thing I've been fascinated with for years. Is like, what is the primary export of a country, and like how does that line up to basically the public companies that represent what they export, and America is like a media exporter, right? And if like Europe is maybe a taste exporter, or maybe a like
some culture, if you want to
exporter. Yeah. So
Well,
it's interesting how that's reflected in companies.
Yeah, Jack, that's a good point, because this question, like the premise of it was that tech is better, which in some ways it is, because it is creating new things.
Market cap wise, I think that was
market cap wise.
Yeah, but company size.
That's a good point. But even market cap, we've seen in the last year, market cap is a big proponent of a big variable in that is how much the PE ratio is. Exactly, is basically of what the market values
whatever
growth
J
as,
Powell
right?
decides it's worth.
Exactly. Whereas you could say the reason our old matey over there is the richest man in the world again, right? Arnaud is now the richest man again, I think.
Whoa.
Wait.
Slow down.
Yeah. Well, it changes every day. But it's like the Lindy effect, right? Like the people are always going to have luxury goods. They're always going to want expensive stuff. There's always going to be a segment of society that wants that. And there's less variance in how they're going to value a company like that. Whereas Google, Apple, Facebook, there's going to be more variance because of it's dependent on interest rates a bit more. But I don't know.
Boys,
maybe I'm talking to Martha. Go on.
No, you're not at all. You're not at all. So I'm going to bring in the 30K Bitcoin sailor analogy right now, just to wrap this section up. So there is a video, I think, that Trung shared of Sailor, that we shared privately like last year or year before that. We're talking about Apple as a luxury good. Like the iPhone is a luxury good. I think he compares it to a Louis Vuitton handbag or something, some like high-end handbag.
It was Louis Vuitton handbag.
They have created a luxury good that sits a layer above any one particular luxury good. And
that's a great point.
Henceforth, they have the biggest like network in the world. A
and
cyber high hornet encrypted wall of energy, etc.
No, that's a great point. That's a great point.
Bilal, you know what we should do? Let's do this, because every time we throw in a Sailor clip, people just freaking lose their mind. I'm sending you the clip right now. Let's play it.
It was like worth $3 billion 12 years ago, and then went to $600 billion. If you ask me, Apple Computer is going to $2,000 a share, right? I mean, I'd be very, very long that company. Whoever's selling that stock must be a moron, right? I mean, this is a company that's going to actually have 4 billion devices out there. If they roll them over once every 4 years, they're going to sell 1 billion devices a year. And the thing that people they don't get, right? You either get it or you don't get it. I sat with one of the 10 richest guys in the world for dinner 5 nights ago, and we had dinner for 4 hours, and he did half the talking, I did half the talking, and he's much more successful than I am. I understand that, by the way. As I said, sometimes you got to do other things than just have opinions to make money, right? There's a lot of execution involved in the rest. But I have opinions. So he said to me, Apple Computer, can these guys hold their prices? Aren't they going to follow the model of the PC industry? Aren't their prices going to taper down? Their 40% margins are going to become 30 and 35 and 20? And it's another example of people just know enough to hurt themselves, right? If you're going to know a subject, you better know the subject, because being like a dilettante and knowing part of the subject is just enough to hurt yourself somehow. And I said, no, their gross margins don't have to tailor down. I mean, if you go to France, and this is the benefit of seeing enough, you go to France, you see Bernard Arnault runs a company, LVMH. They're selling handbags for $4,000, $3,000, $2,500 each. This is a device that women view as fashion, and it's 10,000 years old. And for 10,000 years, no, the prices are not lower after 10,000 years. If you actually care about this thing, the truth of the matter is when the technology goes from being a utilitarian vocational brick that I put under my desk, no one gives a crap about that, to being a piece of clothing, right? A fashion statement, extension of your personality, a piece of jewelry. And iPhones, iPads, they're somewhere between clothing and jewelry and accessory. At that point, they can hold that price point forever.
All right, cool. That was great. Anything else, boys? This has been a great chat already.
Great segment. Just one thing I was just going to share.
Go on, Jack, go on.
Yeah, the caption on that video is amazing. It says, for sale in 2012, making the long-term bull case for Apple. No beard, but still very good.
Dude, he's
beard.
He's grizzled now.
Killing it.
Let's do a quick segment.
I think he's finally in profit on that on those
he's up.
those MicroStrategy buys.
Michael Saylor's back up on the Bitcoin.
Back in the green, baby.
I think he owned one out of every 150 Bitcoin in the world. He's going to own close to 1% of the supply.
Sounds
just do a quick segment that we're doing preamble before this episode. It's just like we're just talking about Twitter. And we were saying, I think Jack asked me, how's that dopamine doing?
Yeah, exactly what Jack said was, how are those dopamine receptors doing? That was Jack's. This is how we talk to each other, not even on camera.
Yeah. I had a pretty viral week the last week, and it's not good, man. I'll be honest with you, it's not good. It's like, dopamine, the purpose of dopamine is to be a motivator to take actions. It's just been completely hijacked by our smartphones and social media I'm reading a lot about I'm reading a book called Addiction by Design. It's about the development of slot machines. So I'll give you guys a couple of TLDRs. We'll do a deeper dive on it. Here's
nice chill
fact.
Sunday reading on
right. You're not helping the case.
Incredible.
Right? You know what I need to read? Yeah, how slot machines
Addiction by Design.
Yeah.
I actually was reading it on Sunday, but I'll tell you guys there's something interesting happened. In the 70s, the most popular casino games were card games. Roulette, blackjack, craps. To this day, those are the only games I play, primarily blackjack. But around the 1980s, two things happened. The U.S. government wanted to start regulating gambling, taking it away from the mafia, and they renamed it gaming. And as part of the renaming of it, this incentivized casinos to be like, okay, we need a new makeover and rebranding. Gaming, so what are we going to do? We're going to go and push the gaming machines, which are the slot machines, right? We're going to make the slot machines more like gaming machines. And so, like, it's basically a euphemism. It's the gambling industry. It's not the gaming industry. You know how they call it the gaming industry? That's
Super
the worst.
Smash Bros.
Super Smash Bros, dude. It's an absolute euphemism. But the whole point is that the gaming industry now is 80% slots.
It's like adult entertainment. We all know what it is. Yeah.
80%, if you go to Vegas, 80% of the revenue, you know when you see it, 80% of the revenue are these machines. And the sad part, I'll just leave one thing about the book. Addiction by Design, they talk to the development of these, so they think about everything, right? The sounds that come out of these machines, the way you interact with it. And this is the sad part, and we'll do a deeper dive later. The people that are addicted to these machines, they aren't even trying to win money. When you talk to them, they're trying to get into the zone. And literally, that's what these gaming machines do. You sit there, they literally design the seats so you don't fall asleep and you're engaged. Like, the seat design is made perfectly, so like you're perfectly engaged and can do the listeners. I'm like touching the camera on my screen, like hitting the give me some numbers motion. But you actually read about the people. No one wants to win money. They're literally addicted to the motion of playing cards and like getting these dopamine rewards of variable rewards. You don't know when if you're gonna win. But the whole point is, the reason I'm bringing that up is like this dopamine stuff, man. It's like that. I was reading this and I'm like, oh, that's literally what's happening to me with my phone. It's like, I'll be on Twitter sometimes and I'll go so deep, like just refreshing the notifications, and like 30 minutes will go by and I'm like, what the fuck did I just do? So yeah.
You know what's crazy? If you look at that thing out of focus too, it looks like a slot machine. Like if you look at your like notifications tab from across the room, it's like colorful dots. This line, nuts row, colorful dots. There is the same.
That's not a coincidence,
like,
mate.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence.
I read that book too.
And the little bring, you know, the bring,
the sound,
the refresh thing.
Well, that infinite scroll,
it's
to
rolling,
your point,
right?
Yeah, they said that the guy that designed the infinite scroll like increased engagement by like it doesn't end, right? This is why TikTok is so
pressing
dangerous.
the button. Every time you press the button, you're like, do I really need to look at another page, right?
Dude,
that's it. Yeah,
dude, Jack, you nailed it. This is why this is what's so interesting
it's
about the slot machines.
It's the lid on the M&M jar when we talked about the M&M thing. It's like, oh, it's that friction. I need to actually do this versus just M&M's to the dome. You know what I mean?
This isn't even a joke, man. M&M's to the dome.
It's just another fist formula. I haven't got the lid, so I don't want to go stale.
That's not even a joke, man, because you know how when you do the slot machines, the coins used to come out and like hit like a metal thing. You know, you hit it, you know the coins come, you win. they're like, we have to get rid of that because that introduces a feeling of finality. It's like, oh, I hit the slot machine, I've won. My adventure today, my narrative today is over. That's why they're like, we got to go full digital. This narrative never ends.
And then you invent crypto.
Yeah.
And then you have these
There can't be a moment, right?
AI.
There can't be a moment when you get off the ride. Like, that's the point. It's like, if you introduce any moment, like Bilal said, with like the M&Ms, if you introduce any friction where you can stop that ride, people will literally snap out of their zone, their like whatever it is. That's why TikTok's actually the worst. It never ends. And Bilal has spoken about this.
That's why it's the best
never
as well.
ends, right?
It's terrible. No, I have to forcibly, I put the 15-minute, what's it called, like the limits.
Oh,
for
and
all
the screen hits.
And then also, all jokes aside, I think I'm going to delete, like for example, like Twitter, I might just keep on desktop soon, because
I know
even though
do that.
like Twitter, like I still enjoy it and I will use it, but I just find I go on there mainly because I get notifications. Like even for our like DM chat, I'll ask you guys just to WhatsApp me instead, because then I'm like, oh, I might miss something that's relevant to the show, or like something I will find interesting. But it's kind of like right now, I feel every time I go on there, I'm not really gaining the same way I did in the past, and so I just want to break it for a bit.
And your ability to like physically walk away from it too. Like if it's associated with like your desk, as opposed to like it being in your pocket wherever you go. Like I've had moments like that too. Like the last few weeks, I'm like, I've been traveling. I go home and I'm like on my phone, like in the park. I'm like, what am I doing right now?
Yeah. You're
right.
right.
It's not just Twitter though, right? You got other numbers going up.
It's mostly Twitter. Like everything comes through Twitter eventually, you know, like that it all like aggregates there. But yeah, this is a hard thing to train yourself to do, to get on the
leaving the phone at home is the only way that I've
get
ever
out of it. Yeah. Just like
physically
physically separate
go
yourself.
for 4 hours. But the thing is, like, I'll come home and like be in it for 30 minutes.
Inhale.
Like,
yeah.
You gotta go back.
Yeah, and my mother will be like I'll just go sit in the bathroom and I'll literally just be there 30 minutes. She's like, she's like, are you still in the bathroom? I'm like, yeah, I gotta catch up. She's like, it's been 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's
like,
mad.
it's
Yeah,
bad,
Because if you're
bro.
trying to describe or explain what you're catching up on, like what are you catching up on? I just got to see what Paul Graham tweeted this afternoon. I have Why? And you're talking about the
Paul Graham just banned Elon Musk on Twitter. That's literally what's going on.
Yeah,
no, but I will say
it's
the
a
only
weird
way.
feedback loop.
I think you, like, all jokes aside, I think it is really good to have the like I put that limit, which even I often will like extend the limit, which is fine. But just it's that interrupt. It's like, oh, I'm like, oh, now I don't need it. Like otherwise you're just completely
coins,
going.
Bro.
It's the
coins. Cover on the M&Ms.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't even feel that negative about it nowadays. Like I basically have that 15-minute a day for each app from the morning. So like
I'm definitely
by
not
like
that.
10 a.m. I've already hit them all pretty much probably. And so no, but then I get that thing and I'm like, oh, I don't even need to look at this.
Yeah, but you hit your password though, right? Enter your password.
You do hit the password, yeah. But I'm okay with like opting in. But like if I'm just on it all the time, I don't really feel good from it. So I'm just limiting it, and especially since I'm not really posting on Twitter like you guys are, it's a lot easier for me to do that because I can afford to just like completely log off of it, sort of thing. All right, boys, anything else before we wrap it up here? I think that was a good episode.
Well, I'm about to get some dopamine in the form of caffeine.
Oh, nice.
I will say that that Huberman Lab episode on dopamine, did you either of you ever listen to that?
It's so good.
It's really good. It really helped me understand, like to contextualize what it is. It's worth listening to. I would recommend.
Let me give one takeaway from that, Jack. Have you listened to it?
No.
Yeah, he has a great part, which I think all of us are guilty of. He calls it dopamine stacking or something of that nature, where like if you go to the gym, you listen to music, you get 2 forms of dopamine, right?
That pre-workout and the caffeine.
And caffeine. So basically when you go to the gym, you're introducing 3 forms of dopamine. And his argument is like, you shouldn't stack them because you may not want to do that activity if you don't have all 3 things, right? So like, imagine you didn't have your phone one day and then you're like, oh shit, I need to work out today. You're like, never mind, I'm not going to do it because I don't have that other dopamine. Like, cause running gives dopamine. But you stacked your dopamine so your body is used to having both at the same time. So if you don't have the phone, you might not even do the activity which you should have been motivated to do with the serotonin after
regardless.
A run. Yeah,
I would say that I agree with that. The only thing I'd say is if it gets you to do the positive thing more often. I think it's okay. I think that means, like for me, it's like I'll go work out more or exercise more because if I'm in a gym for an hour without music, like I could do it, but I'm not gonna go as often, and I want to encourage that behavior. And I also am listening to like ridiculous stuff nowadays in the gym. It's like I can't listen to podcasts in the gym anymore because it's like it doesn't get me hyped anymore. So I have to listen to most ridiculous, stupid shit
Stormzy.
Like music, or like we got David Goggins going, just like absolutely ridiculous shouting at you vibes. Not shouting, but just like absolute beast mode. And but if it gets me to go, obviously I'm semi-joking, but like that to me is like one of the most positive things in my day. So if it helps me to get there more often,
I understand his argument, but I can't do it either. But I get it with other activities, like with studying.
Definitely.
Like sometimes studying, you'll need like the caffeine and you'll need the music. I'm like, that's probably not the best because now you're reliant on that. The last thing I'll add, based on what Bilal said, was there is no better piece of content on the internet than 15 minutes of David Goggins on YouTube cut to some classical music. Like so. You can't do it. You know why?
He's so ridiculous.
Snatches.
You guys remember Eric Thomas? Do you remember that guy?
Wait, that sounds familiar, but who is that?
Like I think it's Eric Thomas.
Is that a musician?
No, he's a motivational speaker.
Oh, no.
Man,
then no.
There was like, he used to have these great YouTube videos, man. When I was like 17 or something, I used to watch these and share them with the boys. I'll send you a link.
Love it. All right. Let's get one of those in the show notes. All right, boys, that was great. So if you're listening to this, me and Jack may be meeting up somewhere in the city, Manhattan, downtown. Check Jack's Twitter for that. And if not, we'll do another one in the future where we actually organize a place for people to come. But this time it was like Jack's schedule's all over the place and we weren't 100% sure. So hopefully we can do that. And thanks for being here again. And we'll see you guys next week. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Right.